Welcome back to Backroom Convos. I'm yours truly, Lesego M, Daddy Pod, aka Shoot Your Shot, and maybe you might get a chance to call me Daddy like Cairo. Welcome to another episode where we talk about everything entertainment, current affairs, and your favorite celebrity guest. We do have them on the podcast. I'm yours truly, again, Lesego M. So, yeah, it's been a minute since I've been with you guys. I do apologize for that. And I want us to talk about this, right? Maybe after I just ask for an apology, maybe just give me the platform to, give you the story as to, why I haven't been releasing episodes consistently. So there was a time last year I spoke to you guys that I'm working on something. I believe last year, mid-year, June, July, if I'm not mistaken. Told you guys that I was working on something, and I know a lot of you guys thought that I was speaking about the video version of the podcast, which we're still working on, even. But what I was referring to, it was, the radio gig. I didn't officially announce that I am going into radio. You know, I was like, yeah, let me just try out like this radio thing and see where it takes me. So I did that, and you know I'm having a lot of fun. So yeah, I got the gig, radio gig. So I've been busy doing radio adjusting, and I love the people that are supporting. A lot of the people that I know personally have showed up, on lives, and I've been having a lot of fun. So I think that's a bit about what I've been up to, and the reason why I haven't been releasing a lot of episodes consistently. So that was the reason. I was working on the radio gig, and I finally got it, and I was just, working overtime. And like this year, I feel like for me, it's just the year I've never been like so busy ever in my life. And not to say, well, team, I hate the experience or whatever. Like last year, I was going through a lot of frustrations as far as like, oh, like I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and a lot of things last year were frustrating me. But this year, I feel like as much as there is a lot of hard work behind everything that I'm doing, but there's also like a reward because a part, like a huge portion of what I do now is things that I love to do, which is radio, which is speaking to you guys, which is podcasting, which is business, like the property thingy that's going on. So I really enjoy that a lot, a lot. I enjoy that a lot. So, last year, because in the year before last, I was going through like I was doing like some transition and like having to move from Joburg to this side, the company. So there was just a lot about coming into a new environment from last year, So like just from coming this side alone in the farm, it was just a lot. So I think even now I can say that I'm still even finding my feet, because each and every year I'm introduced into a new space, new platforms, people that think different than I do. And I'm so grateful for it all. I'm so grateful for it all. And I also saw someone that I truly love, to see as a content creator, even. I need to say that, Guti, I love her as a content creator. I love her content and appreciate her content. It's just unfortunate that at some point I couldn't interview. We're supposed to have an interview, but that couldn't happen because she was in a different place in her life. I was, in a different place of my life. So we couldn't have the interview. So the person that I'm speaking about is Kawe. Is Kawe Madleleni, if I'm not mistaken. Kawe Madleleni. Yeah, Kawe Madleleni is the person that I'm speaking about. For those of you who don't know who Kawe is, can you please go check her content out on TikTok? She's doing amazing work, man. And she just released a children's book, So, like, those are some of the people on a personal capacity that inspire me to do more, to be more. So, and that's how I operate when it comes to like everything that I do. I think my biggest goal or aim in life is to always, to inspire and to always be inspired by the people that are in my space, people that are in my environment, be it digitally or physically. So she's one of those people that I see and I look at and I'm like, yo, as much as we do too, like of the different things. I mean, like media, and you're uh, a therapist of some sort, if I'm not mistaken. You know, so she's doing that. She's also a content creator. She just released her own, children's book. And she did explain a lot about, her children's book. And I think recently she had an interview with Metro FM Award. And just to see that, like I think she's one of the people that, when I was starting out, she was like one of the people that I was like, oh, okay, like, oh, she's doing, like, she has potential. She's doing this within the media space, content creation. I think at the time that I met her, she was still in varsity and she was still learning coding at the time. I think you remember there was a time when she was learning coding. Yeah, there was a time I was introduced to her when she was still learning Python, and she was doing Python, and she was in varsity. Then she graduated. We got to see her parents, and she moved to Joburg. She started doing the Pretoria, content. It's on a thingy, running, and running has always been a part of her journey, right? So I've seen all that, and I've seen her growth within the space, because everything that I'm talking about in her story or about her story is documented, is well documented. It's not something that I've researched, but because genuinely I am a true fan of, consistency, discipline, and success, and to be inspired as well. So she's one of the few individuals that I feel like they've been able to do that for me, to be inspired, to inspire me. So like when I saw her doing the metro thingy, saw her with the book, children's book, the new job, the new car, the new place. I'm like, well, like this is something. This is content that I really love to see. This is content that I really love to see. And this goes back to, I think, when I look at people like her and I look at people like myself, Lesego, and I see the importance of, a child being brought up in a family that has the right values, the family that supports their children, a family with two parents, even, and when the family structure is right, your child stands to be anything in the world, you know. And for some of us, I see it now a lot, and I'm like, well, we just had like your single parents, like it's tough. It's tough when you do have like both parents and they're all trying, but they're trying by all means to give you that. I think two is better than one. So when I see it, and it's the loving families, and the kids, they blossom into the world, whereas with like people like me who had like single parents, as much as like you did have your mom. In my case, I did have my mom who was like pushing for me to get the best education, to get the best at anything, to be at every school event, to be at every school trip. I never missed a school trip. I think I never missed a school trip, because she always made a plan for me to like be in that trip. She's hardworking, and I feel like now this is just the feeling that I have, that children that come from a background with two parents, they tend to do better in life. And that's just from like looking on social media, looking at my peers, and I'm like, yeah, no, it's different. And I think with me, because my mom had passed away, when I was a bit, I think I was still in like going into, when I was still in primary when she passed, right? I was still in primary. So everything was still new. I was always with her. So now I had to go out and live with my grandparents, right? So obviously the change of environment, I'm not used to my grandparents. I always used to tell my mom everything. So like the change of environment, she's a different person, different philosophy about life in general. And that for me to transition from being intimate, having intimate conversation with my mom about everything about life in general, whereas with my grandparents is more, yeah, as a man you need to, you can't just, like if you need to discuss certain things, ho na le botatemoholo, ho na le bomalome, you can't just speak your mind with your grandmother. And I say my grandmother because the only ever closest person to me was, my mom. And like I was like, okay, like I can take that maybe to my grandmom. And like my grandmom wasn't having it. She was like tough, like rock solid, you know. So I feel like that transition or like, yeah, that transition for me became tough because it taught me how to have a thick skin to, you know, keep a lot of the things that I was going through inside me. And it was bad and like some good even, because there's certain things that even I wanted to communicate, like deeply I wanted to communicate, but I was like, yeah, given the person and the platform, it's not allowing for me to open up, and it's not easy for me to be me, where it's not easy because there's never been, or there was never foundation or things or platform given to me to say, oh, Lesego, you can be this person, you can be emotional, you can speak your mind, so I've always feared and to speak my mind when I'm in certain spaces, when I'm with my uncles. I always gave everyone my alter ego. I always gave them my alter ego. They never truly knew me. Like I can never say like till this day, Guti, there's one person who truly can say, I know him. So I feel like people just know what I present to them, and sometimes that may be subconscious, and sometimes it may not be, it may be, unconscious, subconscious. So like I say this to say, I say that to say this, you know as much as like certain people succeed in life, but the right foundation was laid for them to prosper or to succeed later on in life. And it's unfortunate that as much as we are pushing and we want our kids to be a better, or to have to face better challenges than that we are facing as my generation. I don't want my kids to ever like have to go through the same challenges that I'm going through. So I work hard because I want to lay a foundation, or a foundation of hard workers, and be the backbone as much as I can say, oh, like, yeah, you guys can be, but they also have to have a rapport with, yo, my father did this, and he was doing A, B. They have to, when we sit down and we speak about Umlando, and I know at some point in the radio station, we were asking people, what's Umlando, So, Umlando, I'm speaking about Umlando right now, right? So, Guti, they need to have that rapport, which is Umlando. Oh, dad did this, mom did that, and they are both loving parents. The foundation is there. They come from a warm home, and they have everything that I didn't have. I should be able to get from my wife. They should be able to get from my wife. We should be a generation that not only passes those generation, we should break some of these generational curses, so we all have to be successful. There's certain traits that we need to leave behind, and because you want to break certain generational curses, certain things become harder for you to achieve. For someone who comes from a family that where a foundation has been laid for them to succeed, it may take them 2 years, it may take them a year to actually get to the next phase of what that looks like for them. But for me, it takes longer because I have only me to lean on. You know, I only have my hard work to lean on. And especially when you're in a space where, I lost my parent and not close with my pops, and you are in that space where it's like literally you against the world. You can work with the world or the universe, as we may say, with like the week. Universe is doing everything. It's working for you. Right. So it's been the hardest challenge for me and everything that I do to this point. Even when I got the radio gig, I'm like, yo, it took a lot of preparation for me to be in a platform, and I still continue working this hard because I don't want to be complacent. And obviously, I want to make it big, I want to go commercial, and I have all these things that I want to do with the podcast. I have a lot of ideas, but obviously, there has to be planning, there has to be a lot of things that go into it, of which they're pretty much demanding. I've made up my mind, I would say, if I want to be successful, and if I want to be successful, I need to be comfortable with working hard and having less nights to sleep. I need to be comfortable with being disciplined. I have to be comfortable with, acknowledging, Guti, I won't always be right, and acknowledging the fact that, not everything that I say will always be right, and being able to take failure, and make something out of it, and not take failure personal, because it's only there to teach you a lesson. Like, it's only now that I'm getting comfortable with that to say, like, bro, this is what I wanted. I'm comfortable with all these things coming my way, because there's no way that I'm going to be the person that I'm meant to be if I'm comfortable with certain things. Like being comfortable with laziness, you won't get to where you need to get or communicate what you need to communicate if you're always lazy. So, like, now, I think for the longest time I always had the theory of success, and I've been preaching it, but there comes a time in life where everything you've been preaching is being put to test, and you better preach it and make it, or make yourself be one with what you've been preaching, because when that time comes for you to present or to live what you've been preaching, you have that to lean on, to say, like, this is the dream. I can't take a no for an answer. I need to push. I want to be that person. You can't take a no for an answer. You have only that, literally, to lean back on, your word, and nothing but your word, to say, like, I owe this to myself. I owe this to myself. And I'm not really one to give advice to people, because I feel like everyone lives a different life. I might see what I see from where I stand about your life, but that doesn't give me the right to say, oh, like, I think you need to, or, like, as much as we can say, yeah, 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 but I think it's for someone who's looking from the outside, they can give you a better perspective about what you're going through. And I'm like, yeah, but as much as those people might see what they're saying, they are seeing from the outside. They don't understand the nitty-gritties. They don't understand me, the person that I am, emotionally, physically, spiritually, you know. And their answer might just be one-sided. It might be from a spiritual standpoint, or it might be from a physical standpoint. You know, there's certain thing contributing factors to certain input or opinions, for someone to say something. I'm like, I don't like to give advice because of that, because I don't understand the full picture of what you're going through emotionally, physically, spiritually, and mentally. So I don't really like to give advice, but, like, for people who want all the success in the world, want the soft life of the world, you gotta make sure that you're comfortable. It's not fun to sleep less hours. It's not fun to sacrifice a good time. It's not fun, I'll tell you that. But you know what is fun? What is fun is you living your dreams. I was never here to motivate, but I seen that how it clip, and I was like, I need to say something about that, you know. And when I look at it, I see a job well done from the parents' standpoint. I'm like, yeah, it's not what I want for myself, but I'm like, this is the formula, this is the outcome, you know, this is the gist of what I'm looking for. I'm like, well, they were there, they were supporting to their daughter, and like, you see, with the foundation was laid right for her for her to be a black, beautiful, strong, independent, black woman, you know. And I'm like, yeah, that's the foundation, and I love it. I love it from the parents, and congrats to her and the success, and shout out to everybody again who's supporting the radio for me. So that's a bit about why I haven't been releasing content. And I strongly like want to like badly. I have ideas, I have a lot of things that I want to push out, visual content like your videos. I want to do that a lot. I have ideas, I have but sometimes when it's not time, you just have to like sit back and relax and have faith that the God that you pray will make it happen for you. You should never ever panic, you know. And as much as I think this year I'm praying less, and but I tell you this, each and every day in my life I see his hand, and I'm like, I'll forever be grateful for that. I see his hand in everything that I touch, and never in any moment in my life did I ever think, Booty, oh, I got this because of hard work, or I feel like the certain parts of my life right now that are, just hanging in the air, but they're supposed to be like logically or theoretically, they're supposed to be pieces that are falling apart. But how those things are still hanging there in the air is beyond me. I'm like, how are all these things not falling apart? And it's like I'm in a pause where like what I'm going through now as far as like career is the only thing that really matters. And as much as I have all these challenges, they're all in the standstill. And somehow all these other challenges that were there or they're still there, but some like I see Wuti, they're not collapsing. And I'm like, it has to be God. It has to be God. And with that experience, and I feel like to say God, God, God without actually seeing or like feeling him and the work that he's doing in your life, it's like, yeah, it's easy to say God, God when there's no challenge. But yeah, I love him, but it hits different when you go through a lot and there's a lot of things that are happening in your life, things that are supposed to fall but they're not falling. Surprisingly, they're standing and they're making you stronger. Not to say they're making me stronger though. I'm like, how does that even happen in the world, you know, where in logic it's supposed to be, I'm supposed to be like given whatever challenge that I have, I'm supposed to be even failing right now at what I'm doing miserably. I should be like I should be failing. No, like I should have been out of business. I should have, but all those things. I'm like, given the situation, this should have been the outcome, but it's not. And like, not to say, I don't want to say this, but I feel like now I'm more relaxed in in what I'm doing because I understand the good thing. It's all God, man. Honestly, it's all God. Like from my end, and I'm like, I made it to this point or to this day of the month. I didn't have a plan. I didn't know maybe where the taxi fare was gonna come from or my next meal was gonna come from. But I have shelter, you know. There's no night tailoring I go without eating. And all those things are possible because of him. You know what I mean? So like I'm just in awe, dog. Like I'm just in awe, like everything that's happening. I'm like, yo, mudimu momolo, mudimu mo. And like I feel like obviously there's certain parts in your life where you feel like yeah, I can give a testament about the work of God or like Him being a part of my life. And, but at this point in my life, I've only experienced this twice. When I was starting out, like the first, when you remember, I told you a story about my uncle. I think it's like the third or second episode of the podcast where it's like, yo, he beat me up, I broke my arm, stayed with a friend, and after staying with the friend, I had to move to a friend of a friend's caravan. I had to stay there, and in that moment, uh, I was closer to God without any challenges. I only had Him, and I only had to pray, wake up, sleep, pray, write music, pray, be creative, and pray, sleep. I only had that to do. I never worked a day during that process because it was a process of healing, a process of personal growth, personal development, and that's the only other time when I've really felt like Mudimu na le nna. I'm guided in everything that I do. There might be moments that shake me, but there's situations that remind me that you're here because of Him. Yo, and I keep on. There's a point in my life where I was like, oh, like where I was comparing like serendipity and a miracle. It's like I even went to ChatGPT at some point because I didn't really understand. Okay, it's a moment of serendipity, of course, it is. But wouldn't we say that moment of serendipity can be the hand of God? And can we refer to that as a miracle as well? You know? So that's the conversation. Like, I don't understand, guys. I don't. Honestly, I don't. So a lot is happening, and I'm super grateful, humbled with everything that's happening in my life in this point. And I only have God to thank for everything, Because I think I'm in a corner where He speaks louder now, or I think he's showing off, but he's not showing off with me to people. He's showing off his strength to me with some things that I know internally, because only I know, only I know these experiences or what I'm going through, and he keeps on flashing all those things. But do you see that? Or do you see that? You know, and I see all those, and I'm like, oh God, I see your work in each and everything that I do. As much as people are here to assist, but your hand, my Lord. So, I think this episode of the podcast, I just wanted to give thanks to everyone who's supporting, and to acknowledge for you guys to also see with everything that I'm going to we are going to release consistently. We are hitting 200 episodes. We are in our third year of the podcast, and I see a lot of podcasts succeeding, and I'm like, our time will come. 3 years in, still growing stronger. I mean, we were able to get the radio gig because of that, you know So yeah, man. I just wanted to say that. I just wanted to say that because that's it. That's currently that's what's been happening in my life, and maybe at some point I was procrastinating as to whether I should be releasing an episode in the podcast. But I'm glad tonight or today that I was able to release this, you know. And I hope this gets to more ears, Obuti, for that one dream that you're praying for whatever that you're going through, whatever struggle or challenges that you're going through. Like, just always remember, Mtana Sekayo, but God is there, and Mdimo is just like This life thing he tailored, the way he tailored this life thing is so genius, because only he can understand, or only he knows what he has for you. Because you might think, well, Uti, what you have now is the thing, but only he knows. At some point, I thought I was gonna be a big thing in music or writing or whatever. I'm like, it can still happen now, but he wants me at the certain place at a certain time. And even if I want that music thing to work out, that record label to work out, it won't work out. You know why? Because it's not time, and he wants me for something greater than what I think is. You know, I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I enjoyed talking to you guys. I'm yours truly, Lesego M, Daddy Pod, aka Shoot Your Shot. And maybe you might get a chance to call me Daddy like Cairo. Did you enjoy the episode? What are you looking forward to this year? You know, what are you what what is that one thing that you're going through and it's showing you flames? Ask yourself that and pray about it. Write it down. Speak to God. Now I feel like in this point in my life, I say this in closing, I feel like now in my life more than ever, I've always been the one that's talking to God. But like in real time, in the present day, I feel like I hardly speak to him, and he's like speaking to me like on a high, like he's speaking to me. He's speaking to me, and like I'm well aware of every conversation, of every turn, or of every, and I'm like, oh, it can only be him, you know. I love that. I love that. Please do not forget to follow, like, and subscribe to get a notification for each and every time we drop an episode. I'm yours truly, Lesego M, the report, aka Shoot Your Shot. And maybe you might get a chance to call me Daddy like Cairo. The word of the day is use what you have until what you have brings you what you have. It brings you what you want. I reiterate, use what you have until what you have brings you what you want. Again, I'm Lesego M, the report. Have a lovely one. Cheers.